Katie, and today I'm here to talk to you about can't breathe. Thank God I have my inhaler, because today I'm here to talk about asthma and asthma attacks. So what is asthma? What's an asthma attack? According to an article by Peacock in 2009, during an asthma attack, the lining of the airways becomes swollen and muscles surrounding the airways tighten. As a result, the inside of the airways become more narrow. The airways also may become blocked with mucus, and air can no longer move freely in and out of the lungs. Asthma can be a very life or death situation depending on how to handle the situation. It needs a medical diagnosis, and there is not yet a known cure. Continuing on with the article from Peacock, asthma affects all races and all ages. In children, asthma is most likely to occur before the age of 5. Young children are especially open to attack because their lungs are still developing. Among adults, asthma usually appears for the first time between 30 and 39, and about 10% of new cases occur in the people aged 65 or older. When I was in the 7th grade, I had a terrible asthma attack, and I was almost life-flighted to Akron Children's Hospital. I spent 7 days in the hospital, and since then, I have become a patient of many doctors who've helped me learn to control my asthma and what to do during an asthma attack. I chose this topic for my informative speech because learning about new information and spreading information on asthma helps me learn, and it's easy to relate it to. Throughout my paper, I will be talking about symptoms of asthma, causes of asthma, and treatment options and a way to better control one's asthma. To start out, I will discuss how chronic lung conditions have many possible symptoms that can occur rapidly and painfully, or acute and barely noticeable. Symptoms of respiratory disorders found that common symptoms of lung disorders include shortness of breath, coughing, noisy breathing, and chest pain. For shortness of breath, that happens when a tightness or stiffness in the lungs, and it's very hard to breathe, and it can be irritating and distracting. If left untreated, it can cause fatigue or inability for physical exercise. Coughing happens when inside the lungs they swell up, and it's basically like when you're choking because you can't breathe, and that's when mucus builds up, so you also start coughing up mucus and phlegm. The third symptom is noisy breathing. That's the wheezing, panting, crackling sound. Very easy to point out because all you have to do is listen. And the fourth symptom is chest pain. Chest pain can be a little hard to distinguish or relate it to asthma because it could be coming from the lungs, but it could also be coming from the heart or the esophagus. In the same article as symptoms of respiratory disorders, pain on one side of the chest that worsens with deep breathing, coughing, or laughing suggests a pleurisy. This is the inflammation of the pleura, which is the membrane around the surface of the lungs and the inner chest wall. Although symptoms can be very clear, the cause of asthma varies from person to person. The reason patients become diagnosed with asthma is because they experience what is known as a trigger. According to McCarthy, 2009, these triggers may include allergies, exercise, irritants, and weather. Allergies such as pollen, animal dander, dust mites are a very common trigger. LaForce in 2007 says approximately 75 to 80% of children with asthma have significant allergies. The second trigger is exercise or exercise-induced asthma, and that happens while exercising. For example, when you're running, you're breathing in very short breaths, and that's also called a colder than usual air intake, which is harder for people with asthma. The third trigger is irritants. That is any type of fragrance, perfume, any type of smell that can set off shortness of breath or wheezing. Also smoking, that's a very big play. Children who live with parents that smoke are 3 times more likely to develop asthma as a child than a child living with non-smokers. And the fourth trigger is weather. Weather is a very important thing because as the season changes, the temperatures are changing. So if it's cold one day, hot the next day, cold the next day, someone with asthma is going to wake up in the morning and their chest is going to be tight because of the different temperatures and the different colder than usual air intake. After being diagnosed with asthma, it's very easy to control the symptoms, and there's many treatment options. There's many types of medicine, daily inhalers that you take for emergency, allergy pills. As stated by Terry in 2009, there are 4 steps into bettering one's asthma: an action plan, avoiding triggers, keeping track of asthma symptoms, and visiting a doctor regularly. An action plan is a 1-page guide developed by the patient and the doctor that sets the amount of uses and doses of medicine and what to do in case of an emergency. Avoiding triggers could be getting rid of your pets or using allergy-proof bedding. Keeping track of your symptoms is important because if you ever notice a new trigger, that's important to write down, so for future reference. And visiting a doctor regularly, because asthma conditions can always change. People can eventually even grow out of their asthma. In conclusion, asthma is an uncurable but easily managed disease. Whether triggers are easy to find or difficult to distinguish, eventually the symptoms will appear, and it's very possible and necessary to seek help from a medical professional. Asthma affects all races and all ages. In children, asthma is most likely to occur before the age of 5. Young children are especially likely and open to attack because their lungs are still developing. Among adults, asthma usually appears for the first time between the ages of 30 and 39, and only 10% of new cases occur in people of the age 65 or older. Throughout my speech, we've talked about the symptoms of asthma, the causes of asthma, better treatment plans, and how to control your asthma. Ongoing research is being conducted to reach the goal of the cure for asthma. But until then, it's important to remember, even though asthma symptoms can be controlled, the conditions can always change, and it's important to pay close attention to the respiratory system. Living with asthma is not a choice, and it's not always easy, but it's easy to control if you make the right choices.